So we're gonna dig in a little deeper in Isadora. Hopefully you've enjoyed Mark's tutorials. I think he does a great job. He goes at a really quick, good pace, explains things really thoroughly. I just wanted to follow up with a few more sort of overview videos with some specific techniques you might consider exploring a little bit further. Also, there's tons of resource. Well, actually, I'll take that back. There's very little resources online for Isadora, but there are pockets where you can get some great information to help you facilitate whatever your artistic vision is. I want to go back through and look at just the interface a little bit. Obviously, I have a one scene, as you know, down the bottom called Untitled, and then I have a movie player who's playing scene number 3, movie number 3, which is the iMovie, and it's hooked up to a projector, and you can see that I'm showing my stage so that you can see that going on. Over in the top left-hand corner, you can see that there are a variety of different types of icons that allow you to select different types of assets that you can bring in. The first one is video effects. So I just want to look at some video effects here. You can see there's a long list. This is very similar to Adobe Premiere that has tons of video effects that you can apply to a video, and you can change the settings of them to create different expectations. So you can do the same thing with videos inside of Isadora. So for example, if I look at one of my favorites, Gaussian blur, and I wanted to apply the Gaussian blur to this video, what I would do is I would actually place that onto my work area, and instead of having the video patch straight into the projector, I would want to disconnect that patch, and I would want to have the video patch through this filter. So it would come out of the movie player into the filter, and then out of the filter into the projector. And you can see now the video looks blurry, and you can see there is a scale here that I can dial up the amount of blurriness that I want to, right? I can set that to whatever I want it to be, or if I wanted to change over time, you guys already know how to use an envelope generator. So if I typed in an envelope generator, and I were to set this envelope generator output to going into that size of the blur, when I hit trigger, it should go from 0 to 100%. Making it really, really blurry. If I wanted to go the opposite direction, obviously I'd just make a starting point 100 and my end point 0. And now, or if I didn't even want 100, let's say I wanted to start at 50. When I click the trigger, you can see it starts out at 50 and then it goes to nothing. So it goes to nothing. Goes to nothing. Now, obviously, if I wanted to have a trigger that was a keyboard shortcut, I could do a keyboard watcher that assigned a certain letter, whatever that is, and I could have that letter coming out into that trigger. And so now if I press the letter A on the keyboard, it does that action. And if I wanted to be able to jump back and forth, obviously I would create that into a 2-segment section, and in the second segment I would have it go back up to 50. And so now it's going to start out, when I press A, it's going to go, and then it's going to go back up. But I want it not to do all, as you guys know. I would set my, instead of trigger mode to all, I would do 1 and done, right? 1 and end. Now when I press A, it makes it sharp. Press A again, it becomes blurry. Press A again, becomes sharp. So there you can see you can do some cueing inside how you're applying this filter and whenever you want to apply the filter. That filter could be replaced with any number of filters that you have over here, and so you can explore these on your own if you want to. Can kind of move them, and some of them are pretty self-explanatory, but you kind of need to dig in a little bit deeper. Realize when you're playing a video, a movie with the movie player, if it has audio, it's going to play and it's going to loop constantly, which is great. Sometimes you may want that sound file to be something that's just a sound file and you want to play it inside of Isadora. I would recommend probably the easiest way to do that is to render it out with a black background or some sort of transparent background from Premiere so that it actually comes out as a movie file, and then you can use the movie player. But if you wanted to use something like up here, I have an AIF file or WAV file, I can use what is a sound player to access sound files, and you can see that it does the same. It's very similar interface. Two differences between this is, one, it doesn't automatically play, and two, you don't need to hook it up to a projector. So you would pick your sound. So I'm going to go with number 1, which is associated with the number 1 sound. And you can see here I have a start and a stop button, and then some other things that I can change as well. So if I were to press the start button, you'll hear the sound start. And if I press the stop button, it stops. If I were to let it continue playing, it'll play through the whole thing, and then it'll just stop. It won't loop. If I wanted to have keyboard shortcuts to cue it, I could create a keyboard watcher that would have like A to start, and then if I wanted to, I could duplicate that and make, let's go with Z to stop. And so now, instead of having to actually physically click on that little dot, I can just use my keyboard to start and stop the sound whenever I wanted to. So that's a great sort of extra feature that you can play around with if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. As I start looking at some of the other features that I can use to control things, one of the other things, we looked at how the keyboard watcher can watch what keys are being pressed. There's also a mouse watcher, which sometimes can produce some really interesting effects. And so this mouse watcher, it has modifiers, and you can see as I'm moving my cursor around, it's actually tracking where my cursor is on the screen using 0 to 100% as it moves horizontally and vertically. And so I can actually hook those directly up if I wanted to my horizontal position and my vertical position of my movie, and you'll see that as I move it up or as I move it down, it moves correspondingly. I think mine has actually already been modified so that it moves more appropriately. Yours may be backwards. So if you click on horizontal, you can see that right now my minimum scale is set to minimum of 50. I can make that negative 100. Let's do negative 100 and maximum 100. And now you can see that when I move it horizontally, it moves all the way off and it moves all the way off. If I didn't have these numbers set in this capacity, if it was the opposite, then it would move in opposite directions. So I'm going to set my vertical position also to 100 and negative 100. Okay, so now I can move that horizontally, vertically, wherever I want that video to be at any time during the playing of the film. Now, I may not want that to happen all the time because I might be working and that might be disruptive. So this keyboard watcher does have a modifier option, which allows me to add a modifier like the command key. And so now when I move my cursor, it doesn't do it unless I'm pressing down the command key. Now when I hold the command key, you'll see that the video will jump to where my cursor is. Now if I let go of the command key, it'll stay up there. Now if I press command key, it jumps to where my cursor is, and then it moves around as long as I have the command key pressed down. You could do some other interesting features with this. I mean, again, trying to stack these things on top of one another. I could create an alpha channel so that instead of this being passed straight into the projector, it could go through something that would have like an alpha channel. So if I look at alpha mask, you'd see that alpha mask, I'm going to allow this object to come through this alpha mask channel and then pass to the projector. Okay, so it should looks pretty good. No, it's not showing at all now. Crazy. Let me add a picture player, because again, I can't show pictures. I have to use pictures using a picture player. And this time I'm going to use the Isadora PSD file. And I'm going to map that through my mask. Okay, so there it is. So now I can actually see it. So this mask, this Isadora PSD, where it's white, it's going to be transparent, and where it's black, it's going to be opaque. And so therefore you can see that I'm seeing through the white areas of this Isadora mask, but I'm not seeing the black areas. If I wanted to invert that in some sort of way, I believe that there is a video inverter that I can use, that if I were to patch this through the video inverter, it would invert those video graphics. And so now when I look at this, you can see that now I have the word Isadora, that's black. Where it's black, it is now going to be transparent because I've inverted it. I've flipped the black to the white and the white to the black. And so now that is using the alpha channel that is allowing this video to play through, right? And if I were to now use my modifier, you can see I can move this word wherever I want to, anytime I want to. What happens if I had another movie player actually playing and projecting on the same at the same time? So let's say I had this one projected and I bring up a different one, let's say like that one. So now you can see again where it is in the hierarchy changes how it's being interacting with one another. But now if I use down my modifier key, I can move that Isadora and move it around wherever I want it to be, and I can actually bring it off stage, and then when I'm ready to hold down my modifier and bring it on stage, and leave it up there, and then hold down my modifier and pull it off the stage again. So some interesting things that you can do when you start stacking some of these objects together and building a more complex scene. I also want to take a look at this video in Watcher, because it'd be a really interesting way of pulling some graphics. Instead of pre-recorded stuff, you can actually use live video, and so you can access that by going to your live capture settings. Mine's for some reason not showing up, so I'm going to go to my preferences and see if that'll load it up. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I don't know why it's not doing that for me, but I'm gonna go here, and you can see that one of the things that I can select, as Mark was talking about, is I can select the video input. I can also select a sound input. And so as I'm using this, I'm just gonna go ahead and click Start Live Capture. So you guys will get to see me, right? So there I am. You can see I'm right here. I'm in the shadows. But it's also recording not only my video but also my audio. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now if I take my video in Watcher and I attach that to a projector, you'll see that this is actually recording, you know, whatever I'm doing at the time. Still got my moves, yeah. All right, so that's cool. You can actually layer that over top of some other videos. You can mix that with a movie player that also is having a projector at the same time. So if you wanted to have something that had some sort of effects on it, you can sort of blend them in some sort of way, you know? But let's say I wanted this layer video that's playing, I wanted it to pulsate related to the sound that's coming in. I want to have some sort of input that's controlling. And so if I look at the intensity of this, where's my intensity setting? Here's my intensity setting. You see that goes up and down, right? And so as it gets, as things get louder, I want it to become more intense, and as it gets quieter, I want this to settle. Well, you'll notice that this sound watcher is something that I added that is generating numbers based upon the noise level. And so if I clap really loud, it'll jump up to 100. That's probably not great for you guys sitting there listening with headphones. But I can take this and I can drag this number into my intensity setting. And then you'll see that now that number is moving, the intensity is moving based upon, and I'm going to just, so based upon the sound, I'm actually getting some sort of live input that's using information, you know, to change the way it's impacting the work. And if I wanted to change that intensity so that it wasn't always dropping down to 0, I could make my minimum one at 50, right? And so now it's minimum at 50, but then it pops up, you know? So these settings that each one of these, you can set your minimum and maximum setting, and then that number that's feeding it will give you a differentiation between whatever the minimum is and whatever the maximum is. And that can be a really useful tool to try to mix and match some things together to create some interesting dynamics. There's tons of stuff you can do with Isadora. Really, it's about trying to figure out what it is you want to achieve and then trying to build it. And so, like I've said before, there's very little resources out there on the web, but it's a great community that helps one another produce these types of patches. So as you guys are building your projects, hopefully you'll reach out to the Facebook group that I encourage you guys to join. Hopefully I can assist you in some sort of ways, but a lot of it's just trying to kind of think things through logically and figuring out where to add certain patches to create the type of look that you're looking for.